Hello, this is CJ Game 17 and I'm back again with another video. Sorry about that. Anyway, I'm going to be talking about, well, just me giving my thoughts on today's music. Or today's music scene. Well, today's mainstream music scene, really. So I guess we'll get into it. Here's my thoughts on today's mainstream music scene. I guess you could say it's pretty much the same as most people who talk about this or make videos about this, saying that, oh, today's music sucks and all that. It's not as good as what it used to be. Well, I do feel to an extent that is true. I want to give my as to why that might be the case. Because I do think there's a lot of things that's preventing it from being what it used to be. Yes, I do feel today's music is not as good as it used to be. I do feel like it has indeed downgraded. I think there are some reasons to that. Many reasons. First off, the standards of music today has lowered. It's diminished from what it used to be. That would be the first thing I have to say about that. And by that I mean what's acceptable in the mainstream right now. If you see what's in the mainstream, a lot of it is mediocre. You see a lot of mediocrity in the mainstream right nowadays, and that I think that in itself says a lot. I mean, the fact that you have people who cannot sing or write a song or play an instrument or whatever or compose a song, that should tell you something. Especially people not being able to sing. Of all the things that I find offensive when it comes to stuff like that, that has to be the most offensive thing that people can do is not be able to sing, and they're still famous and selling records and all of that. But of course, the second problem would be the people buying into it, but that's just another discussion in itself. I personally don't find a lot of the people in the mainstream worth listening to, really. That just brings me to problem number three, which is a lot of it is, as I said, it's mediocre. A lot of it's bland. A lot of it's repetitive. A lot of it just sounds the same. And it also feels like there's not much effort being put into it. Probably because there's not. Problem 4 would be the way the music is being made nowadays. Actually, this would be problem 4 and problem 5. Problem 4 would be the way music is being made nowadays. As I said, you have people who cannot sing, you have people who don't play any real instruments, you have people who don't compose or produce their own stuff, and you have people who don't write their own songs. Or if they do write their own songs, it's usually written very poorly. So poor songwriters, people who can't sing, non-real musicians or composers of any kind, and hack producers. Oh, don't get me started on the hack producers. There's so many of them. That could be problem number 5 right there, would be hack producers. A lot of these producers don't know what they're doing. A lot of them are amateurs. Problem number 6 would be the digital age and how that has played a big part in everything that's going on nowadays. That and the whole social media which goes into the digital age. And by that, and this also goes into problem number 7, which is, I think, which goes into more, I'm going to go a little more in depth now, which is the fact that musicians and producers and audio engineers, all these people, they're not taking the time to make good albums or songs anymore. You see, the thing is, part of the reason why I'm also doing videos because I am going to school to become an audio engineer. And from what I've learned so far from doing this is that there are some things that musicians and producers and whatnot are doing today that they shouldn't be doing. One of those things being the fact that they're using special effects to cover up their mistakes or to cover up for the lack of talent or skill that they do not possess or want to possess or whatever. Because another thing is that some people are just lazy nowadays, really lazy, and because of digital age, people they're not trying as hard. But then again, why would you need to try? There's no reason to. Think about it like this. You see, okay, let me backtrack for a second. The thing is, as I said, you have all of these programs nowadays that people can use, and that's how they're making a lot of their music nowadays. Especially with the rise of the whole electronic dance music genre, which is just taking this whole world by storm. Well, technically, the electronic dance music has been around since the 70s, really, if you think about it. But it is really taking the world by storm now. And the way things are looking, it's not going away anytime soon. And in fact, there might be a chance it might not go away at all, because the way this is looking, this is going to be the future of music. My problem with electronic dance music is the fact that a lot of it's just the same beat with a few revisions, you can say. A few changes here and there. Every change that's made is to another subgenre of the electronic dance music. Now, I do like some of it, I don't like all of it. I like the stuff I would say before the 2000s, or past 2004. So I feel like that's when it really just started becoming a bit uninspired and lazy. Especially with the whole rise of the digital age, where you can just buy a bunch of programs and use a bunch of plugins and not really put much effort into it. You can just, because with the programs you can produce and record your own music on your own computer. You don't need to really know what you're doing, which is why you have a lot of amateurs. And then you have the whole thing with the DJs, where you have all these mediocre DJs that really just do the simplest way of DJing, which is just playing records. They always play the easiest records they can play. But going back into it, what I'm trying to say before is that a lot of these musicians nowadays are not taking the time to record a good song or whatever. The thing is that what I've learned is that it takes a long time to put a song out there, let alone an album. And the issue nowadays is that you really can't put that much time into it because of digital age, because of the fact that there's so much there's so much access to music, which I think is another problem. It's just the oversaturation of music itself, maybe oversaturation of everything now, and this instant gratification that the digital age giving people that everyone wants everything now. And the thing is that if you want something of quality, it's going to take time. And the problem is that people don't have patience for it. So the record companies and whatnot, they're rushing these products, and you really can't expect something good to come out of a rush project. It doesn't work. You know, it used to take a year or two for an album to come out. Now everyone has to release an album within like a month, and everyone has to release a song within a week. Songs used to take months, maybe even a year, just recording, because they wanted it to be as good as possible. Nowadays it's like, oh, we don't need that. We got all these programs, so we can use all these plugins, and plus that, even if it's not that good, we'll just use a bunch of effects to cover it up. And we don't really need to try that hard anyway, because hey, not like anyone really cares. It's all these songs are just disposable. Yes, really. Songs are so disposable. That's problem number 8 is the fact that these songs are disposable. And problem number 9 is the albums have become irrelevant. And I think that's one of the big issues too, is that albums are irrelevant now. And this is that all the progress we made with albums from like the 60s and 70s. And you wonder why people consider those 2 decades the best decades of music. Personally, I don't agree with that completely. That the 1960s and 70s were the best decades in music. They are two of the best, and I mean the best era in music. I don't think it is the best era. I think it's one of the best, but not the best. But then again, that's probably because I'm also a fan of classical music, and there you go. But it is definitely the best for, I guess, for obvious reasons. Because of all the creativity that they had back in the day, and during that time period in particular, compared to now when everyone's just like lazy and not only that, but everyone seems to be trying to rehash everything, which goes into my issue with sampling. My stance on sampling, I used to be straight up supporter of it, but now I'm like on the fence with it because so many people do it nowadays, and a lot of them don't do it very well. Like the way sampling has gotten now, first off, too many people sample nowadays. There is such thing as too much of something, and people oversample. the problem, the other problem being the fact that they they do sampling the most in the cheapest ways they can. They usually take large portions of a song and then just loop it, or they might speed up or slow down the tempo, and they usually sample the most popular songs they can find. And you have some people that have actually sampled the same song for different songs. Really, there are some producers that's actually doing that. And that's another thing too, is that a lot of these songs in the mainstream right now, particularly that of like my dance music scene, is a product of the producer and not really of the artist or anything else. It's really the producers that's the artists nowadays. Now, I don't have a problem with that, but all these so-called artists, singers, or pop stars, a lot of this stuff isn't their product. They're just the faces of the product of the producer and the writers that put together the songs, while the pop stars and singers are just marketing tools, or just faces just to sell their product, really. So like if I was to make a song and I got some, I guess you could say hot singer on it, and I made an album from, but it's really all my material, and they're just singing over it or whatever, if you even want to call it doing singing. It's really my product. It's not theirs. They're just the face of it. And that's kind of how I feel about certain people. Yeah. Another thing that's also and going back into the album thing and just the whole songs and them not trying as hard, not putting as much time and effort into it. That's really hurting the scene right now. As I said, you cannot expect quality if you're not going to put in them. You need to put in the time for the music to be good. It's just that simple. You need to put a lot of effort into it as well. And the fact that a lot of people aren't even using a lot of real instruments anymore is just getting ridiculous. I'm for electronic instruments, but how I feel that it should be accompanied with acoustic instruments, but it should not just be just electronic instruments unless it's like for a video game. That's how I feel about it. Because when you don't, you get pretty much what we have now. This one just that same beat with a few variations in between, and that beat that goes on forever. And I get the point of it, make people get the people on the dance floor, but still, it is becoming a bit oversaturated. And the album thing too. Another reason why albums are becoming irrelevant is because of the internet in general. The way the internet is set up, or the way they set up albums online, already makes them irrelevant whether you pirate them or not. Because I feel like whether you download them legally or illegally is irrelevant at this point because they're still not gonna make a lot of money from it at the end of the day anyway. Because the way albums are set up online is that they're set up as like individual songs that are stacked up together. Meaning you could just buy that one song and download it. You don't need to buy a whole album, which is a bad thing in my opinion because it's like Like, I know there are certain songs that people wanted to get, perhaps one that was released as a single, and that when you wanted to hear that song, you wanted to own it really, you would have to buy the whole album. That is not the case nowadays. If you just want to get that song, you just buy it online and download it, or just download it off of some illegal site. That's all you have to do nowadays, and boom, you don't really need to buy an album for that. You just download the songs. But at the same time, it's just like, why would you buy a whole album of something that's not even going to be good in the first place? Going back into not putting much effort into the albums. And people wonder why album sales are down. I think I just named like 3 reasons why that's down. The internet, piracy, and the lack of effort when it comes to making albums in the first place. Like, why would I buy, okay, I guess I'll say a Kesha album, because I just recently reviewed her second studio album, Warrior, on my channel. I didn't buy the album, I just listened to it online. And there's no way I was gonna buy that thing. That thing was torturous to listen to. It really was. And I would not buy that. I'm not spending a dime on that thing. But then again, I wouldn't download that thing either. Now, if we were talking about like Justin Timberlake's new album, I would buy that. I don't. I am planning on buying that at some point because I want to support the artist. And that's the other thing too. If you really want to support the artist, then buy their stuff, support them. But the other thing I gotta mention too, which is also the reason why I think music is in the state of where it is, on top of everything I've already mentioned at this point, is the fact that you have radio television. From what I've heard, most of the top 40 radio stations are owned by the major record companies, so they pretty much play what those companies have, those artists. But if you want to hear an artist that's not on a big label, you have to listen to like a college or independent radio station, or internet radio or satellite radio. And if you want to see an artist on television that's not on one of the big labels, you have to generally watch some, I guess, underground channel or something. I don't know. But really, what you really should do is just turn off your radio and television and look for it online or ask some people. It is hard though because again, you don't know who these people are, so you would have to ask around. Yeah, this brings me to my frustrations of radio and television, and how they're not really helping the situation. But then again, why would they? The companies are desperate right now, and they're trying to do anything to keep their hands on their money. Because the way things are looking, especially with the internet, it is going to kill off the major labels. Some of the major labels have already folded. I think there's only like 3 of them left. From what I've heard, like the rest of the major labels have either like joined together or they have folded. So that's one thing. So that's one of the main things. So I think I'm going to end this video soon because I think I pretty much said everything I need to say about why today's music is in the state of where it is, or why I feel it's in the state of where it is. I think there are some other things involved in it as well, but I'll probably get into that in a future video. I will be making more videos like this in the future because this is going to be my music series. But I want to end it soon because it's going like past 20 minutes. I did not intend for it to be this long. Hopefully you get something out of it. If you guys have any thoughts about it, then let me know. I'll let you guys suggest thoughts into how you feel about today's music scene. What can be done to improve it. And you guys can let me know what other musical related stuff do you guys want me to talk about. I do plan on doing like a classical music rant and talking about why I like classical music at some point in time. But if there's anything else you want me to talk about, music related, let me know. Alright, this is DMA 17, and I am signing out. Have a good day.